My name is Tyler Emfrey, and this is Turn Up My Vanguard. And the clan I'm going to be talking about today is Tachikaze. More specifically, the old Gaia deck build. Now, as you can see by their artwork, Tachikaze is mostly dinosaurs and animals with metallic armor and weaponry. So they're Megazords and Dinosaurs. Let's leave it at that.
Dinosaur version of Iron Man.
Only so without the man. Okay, now with this deck, now I'm gonna start with my trigger count. In this deck, I run 4 heal triggers, and I run 4 heal triggers because obviously all decks, well, most decks gonna have 4 heal triggers. But it's the deck anyway. I use 2 draw triggers, and the draw triggers I use is Cannon Fire, Dragon, Sledge, Anklo. Now his ability is act, so you gotta activate it before your attack phase. And what happens is he goes into the soul, and I can give a unit 3,000 attack power. So I only run 2 because while it's an alright ability, it's not the greatest, but he's mostly in there just for draw triggers because, of course, every now and then you're going to need that extra draw to help you win the game.
It works.
Next, I want to talk about my 2 stand triggers, which is Magnum. Now, my stand trigger has the ability to go into the bottom of the deck. When he goes into the drop zone, he goes to the bottom of the deck. I get plus 5,000. I draw a card. But unlike my draw trigger, he's GB restricted. I have to be at GB1 to use this effect. Which, thanks to Generation Guard, has gotten a whole lot easier to get away with. I only run 2 because that's all I need in this deck. Now, you can run 3 or 4. I wouldn't blame you if you run 3 or 4 because that's a good ass effect for a stand trigger. Now, the next, I run 4 critical triggers. Now, this critical trigger is named Ancient Dragon Dino Dial. And I know what you're thinking. This is a Gaia deck. Why you running Ancient Dragon in it? Well, I'm running this Ancient Dragon because his effect is just too good. Because from Gaia, you're gonna be using Soul Blasting and Counter Blasting. So I'm gonna need to be able to Soul Charge and Counter Charge in order to use those effects. Now he does both at the same time, because before my swing as an act ability, I put him into the Soul, so that's my Soul Charge, and when I put him into the Soul, I Counter Charge 1. So he fulfilled both of those needs of me Counter Blast and Soul Blast in order to get my effects to pull off.
Cool.
And I run 4 more critical triggers. Cannon Fire, Dragon, Parasol Launcher. Now Parasol Launcher effects only works if I have a Vanguard with Gaia in its name. Now Parasol Launcher says that when my Vanguard attacks, I can put him into the soul, and I give Gaia plus 5,000, and I draw a card. Now I say any effect that lets you draw a card is worth putting into the deck, which is why I run this at 4. But he also counts as a soul charge, so I'm getting more cards in the soul, so I got more chances for my soul blasting effects. So that's why I'm running him at 4. You could run him at less if you want, but I would say run 4 of each of these critical triggers because there's nothing wrong with having 8 crits in your deck. And with these kind of abilities, why wouldn't you run them at 4 each?
I think your fight with Shadow Powder may have fucked up your brain there, buddy.
Wow, really?
I had to add that because it was kind of funny.
Anyway, now, I know normally I will go into my Forerunner at this point, but I'm gonna skip over the Forerunner at the moment because I would like for y'all to hear all my other card effects and see why this Forerunner is just so good with this deck.
Till you blow it up.
first, we got Prism Bird. Now, Prism Bird, that's my stride helper. I run him at 3. You could run him at 2, but I like to go 3 just in case, because you never know what you might end up having in the damage zone. Now, Prism Bird says not only does he count as a grade 3 when I stride, he counts as a grade 3, but when I place him on the rear guard circle from the hand, I can search for a Gaia unit, add it to the hand, and then I have to pitch another card from the hand into the drop zone. Basic stride helper. You run them at 3. 2 if you want some more cards in your hand, in your deck.
Okay. And what is next?
Okay, next we have Cold Dragon Freezer Nex. Now, I run him at 4 because he is almost the backbone of this deck as far as grade 1s go. Freezer Nex says that when he goes into the drop zone, I get to soul charge 1, counter charge 1, and then I get to turn around and give a unit 2,000. So I got a grade 1 with 7,000 with an attack of 7,000. And I get to counter charge, soul charge, and give another unit extra attack points. So I run him at 4. And personally, I wouldn't run him at any less than 4. 4 or null. That's what I say when it comes to Freezer Nex.
That is annoying.
How so? Everybody hates on Freezer Nex.
Oh, I hate him mostly because of the fact that I can't get rid of him. I don't run control, so you should be lucky.
Well, you just have to deal with it. Next, we got...
Just like y'all time, buddy.
Next, I want to talk about my Perfect Guard. Now, there's another Perfect Guard that you could put in this deck called Savage Guardian. And Savage Guardian lets you counter charge 1 when you have another one in the drop zone. But I prefer this one because while my deck does requires counter blast, I do prefer his effect because at GB1, if he becomes engorged, which engorged means that when he swings, I get to retire one of my other units. Now, he said when he becomes engorged, I counter blast 1. At the end of the turn, I get to return him to the hand. And also when I give that counter blast, he gets plus 5,000. So I got a Perfect Guard that can swing for 11 by itself. And at the end of the turn, I put it back into my hand. So I got an attacking Perfect Guard that I can still use later on for blocking. Run him at 4. Now, you could probably use Savage Guardian. Maybe that would work better with your strategies, but I like him more. I like that idea a lot more than just 1 counter charge.
Alright. So I'm guessing we're going to the grade 2s?
No, we still got a couple of more grade 1s.
Is that the grade 1 I forgot?
Ancient Dragon Gioconda.
Explain your reasoning.
Now, this is another Ancient Dragon whose effect is too good not to put in this deck. And along with Dinodile, unlike other Ancient Dragons, he's not restricted to needing an Ancient Dragon Vanguard for his effect to go off. Now, Gioconda says, when he's placed on the rear guard circle, I Soul Blast 2, I Counter Charge 2, which is one of the reasons why I need Soul Charging in this deck as well as Counter Soul Charging this deck to get his effect to pull off. But that is still a heavy price having a Soul Blast 2 for his effect, which is why I only run 2 of him because I really don't need that many, and that's just a heavy cost for his effect.
Well, you do have freezing.
Still, there's always a chance that Freezer Nex can either be in a drop zone or he end up soul charging him. So that's why I only run 2.
Now,
and then we have Savage Heroine. Now, deal with it.
You know why.
Now, Savage Heroine. She has the effect that whenever a unit goes into an engorged state, she gets plus 3,000 attack, including herself. So even when she becomes engorged, she gains another 3,000. Now that's a good effect because with this being an engorged deck, you're gonna get plenty of opportunities for her to boost. Unfortunately, her fake is continuous. So if you were to kill off one of your units in the engorged state, she will lose that 3,000. So use her wisely and send your units, your rear guards to the drop zone wisely.
For
I just run her at 2 though.
For Kagerov players, play the feet player.
Next, we are going to our grade 2s. First, I'm going to start with the bane of everyone's existence.
Oh, I hate him.
Explosive Dragon Circle Blaze.
I wasn't even the guy out there that hated, but I hate him too.
Now, Explosive Dragon Circle Blaze, he has 9,000 attack, but it's his ability that's the real killer. When this unit becomes engorged, which once again means that during his swing I retire one of my units, my opponent cannot block with a grade 0. So if I can possibly get this, the column he's on swing to, oh my god, they not gonna be able to put down a grade 0 to block. So either they're gonna have to either they're gonna have to G guard it, or they're gonna have to give up a lot of 1s and 2s, or they're just gonna take it to the face. Run him at 4.
In my experience, kill him. Kill him when you see him.
Everybody hates on Circle Blaze.
Oh no, I hate him with a passion.
Next, we're gonna go to the next one that everyone hates.
I like this guy.
Blade Dragon Gigasaurus. Now, this guy is a fake. Now, he does not have the engorge ability like Circle Blaze, and he is GB restricted. But he does have a nice effect. At GB1, during his swing, I counter blast. I get to retire one of my units, and I get to retire one of my opponent's units. That's nice, but he has to be boosted for this to go off. Afterwards, he gets plus 5,000, and if his attack hits, I get to draw a card. And of course, most opponents, they not gonna want you. They don't want you drawing cards. Period. So they gonna block that attack. So you get his attack higher enough, they gonna have to waste a grade. They gonna have to waste cards. Hopefully a grade 0 or even a G guard just for his attack, because they do not want you to draw that card.
Yep. And then when you find Shadow Paladin, you gonna see a bitch out.
Can we stop talking about Shadow Paladin? We all know it's a busted deck. We all know that clan is busted. That goes without saying. But also keep in mind that since I get to retire one of my opponent's units, I can retire key units on their field. So that's just more helpful. Now I notice a lot of people say run him at 4. You could run him at 4. I just run him at 3 because that works for my deck. For my deck build, that works. 3 is enough for me.
Okay. And what is the next one?
And the last grade 2 I run at 3, is Beam Dragon Apatomosaur. Now his effect is also GB restricted. Now the first part of the effect says that when he is placed on the rear guard circle, from hand, I counter. Well, not from hand, my bad. I lied right there. But when he's placed on the rear guard circle, I counter blast 1 and I soul blast 1. Now, when I do that counter blast and soul blast, he gains plus 2,000 attack off the bat. So he's a grade 2 at 11k. Which is why I run Gioconda and Freezernix, so I could get that counter charge and soul charge, because I'm gonna be saving it for him. Now when he becomes engorged, which once again means that when he swings, I retire one of my units. He gets 5,000 and I draw a card. So he's kind of like Gigasaurus, only except I don't retire a unit. But at least that draw is not dependent on the attack hitting.
And or your opponent.
So I run him at 3.
Alright. Now, bring out the big bad guys that we can't even touch on.
Now, before we get to that,
What's up?
before we get to that, we have 2 of this grade 3.
Oh, he's nice.
Rage Dragon Tyranno Brute. Now, this grade 3 is only for helping you search for Gaia. His effect says that when he is placed, his effect, well, he helps for any of your units with the Engorge ability. But I mostly hope I get a Gaia with his ability. Now, his ability says that when he's placed on the Vanguard circle, I counter blast and I soul blast. When I do that, I look at the top 5 cards of my deck, and then I pick a unit with the Engorge ability among those 5, and I add them to my hand, and I reshuffle the deck.
Oh, okay. So basically, it's like all the other ones that we had.
So he's just there to help me search for key units with the Engorge ability.
Okay.
With this being a deck for Engorged units, I'm almost guaranteed I'm gonna get at least 1 unit with the Engorge ability.
Okay.
And last but not least, the king of this deck, Emperor Dragon Gaia Emperor. Now, unlike the others, which are GB1 restricted, his first effect is GB2 restricted. Now, at GB2, it says that when he becomes engorged, he gains a crit and plus 5,000, which is fine and all. But his most important ability is his stride ability. Now Gaia says that when I stride on top of him, I counterblast 1. I call up to 2 units from my hand, so I could call anywhere from 0 to 2 from my hand and place them on rearguard circles. And then, among those units I currently have on the field after I called my 0 to 2 units from the hand, among all my rear guards on the field at that time, I can choose 2 that gain the ability that when they go to the drop zone, call them to rear guard circle, which is very important and which is the backbone of this engorged deck. Because as you notice, engorge means I have to retire my unit for his ability to go off. Well, this almost makes my engorge ability free, because I can pick a unit, so I can give that ability that comes back from the drop zone to a unit that I plan on engorging on for play anyway. So I give it to them, and so they come back. But I mostly try to save it for my 2 front rear guards, so I can get extra swings. In. But like I said, it's all about the situation and what your play is. And now we're gonna go to my Forerunner, Baby Kamara. Now keep in mind, of all the cards and effects I've told you about, more specifically my grade 1s, Baby Kamara says at GB1, he is Generation Break 1 restricted. At GB1, when he goes into the drop zone, I get to counterblast 1, and I get to call any grade 1 from my deck to the field with plus 3,000 attack. Now this is very important because, for instance, I could search for Freezing X, and he gets plus 3,000, so he becomes a 10k booster. He has 10k on his own, so I can either make him a 10k booster, or if I have a front rear guard circle open, he becomes an attacker with 10,000. Which if I can get him any other more power, he can attack the Vanguard. Or I could search for my perfect guard. And my perfect guard, which is the perfect guard that can come back to the hand when he becomes engorged and I counterblast 1. Which is why I prefer to run him instead of the other one, Savage Guardian. Because I get to search for my perfect guard, and then I can put that perfect guard back into my hand when he becomes engorged. Yeah. Then another play you can use with him is I could search for Gioconda, if I'm low on counter blast, I can search for Gioconda, Soul Blast 2, Counter Charge 2. So that's very important. Because like I said, this is a counter blast heavy deck. Just keep in mind of how big your soul is. And then I could search for Savage Heroine, which is another one of my favorite plays. When Savage Heroine comes out, because of Baby Kamara, she's gonna come out at 9,000. And if I have any other units on the field that's in their engorged state, she gains an additional 3,000. So she could instantly become either a very high attacker or a very high booster. You could go either way for her.
Very annoying card.
And that's just one of the few combos you can use, which is why most people only run one of their Forerunner. I run 3 of them.
Oh no, real niggas run 3.
Four you could run 4. I consider that a little bit more of an overkill, and it kind of at least to me, it kind of throws off the count for my deck. So I run 3 of them. And now we're gonna go to my G zone.
Alright, so which one you gonna show out first?
First, I'm gonna show off Destruction Equipment G-Wall. Now, G-Wall, he has the Engorge ability, and it states that when he becomes engorged, not only does he get 3,000 attack, but I get to retire one of my opponent's front rear guard units. Now, sometimes your opponent's not going to have a front rear guard, so you're not going to be able to use that effect if he doesn't have a front rear guard. But I like to use him either as a first stride, or if I don't have the resources for my other strides to go off. So I like to run him at 3.
Okay.
Next we have Destruction Tyrant, Gradio Gigan. Now Gradio Gigan, he has a very interesting and useful effect. Gradio Gigan says that when he becomes engorged, he gains 5,000 for each of the units he engorged on. Now keep in mind, engorge means I retire a unit when he swings. And also keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to only retire one unit. With engorge you can retire multiple units. But most times only for your other units, most time one is enough. But with him you want to try to retire at least 3 of them. Because when he engorge on 3 or more units, not only does he get the 5,000 from each one, but if he engorge on 3 or more, he draws a card. So that's always helpful. You draw a card. Since he's a grade 4, you're gonna drive check 3 cards, so it's like a 4-card play. Next, we are going to have this mofo. Destruction Tyrant Twin Tempest, or as I like to call them, the Lord and Savior.
I call him the hater.
Now, this is good for when your opponent has a full field, or your opponent just has too many units you're not liking at the moment and you're desperate. Now, he is a board wiper, which means that when his effect goes off, which requires 2 counter blasts, 2 soul blasts, and I have to retire 3 of my rear guards for it to go off. But when it goes off, it retires all the rest of my units and all of my opponent's units. So it's a board wiper.
An evil one at that.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, that's kind of a disadvantage to you as well. It's going to hurt you as well. Which is why you will stride to him on top of Gaia. Because of Gaia's effect, which allows me to pick 2 units that can come back from the drop zone when they retire. You'll have all your rear guard circles with a unit. You'll have 5 units on the board. I would retire 3 of them. I would retire the other three for his effect, as the cause for his effect. But the 2, they could come back from the drop zone. Excuse me. But the 2, they could come back from the drop zone. I would save those to be wiped out, be board wiped by his effect. That way they could come back and you could swing with them.
Well,
Which is normally why I would
guys,
swing.
I'm sorry, I dropped the dice underneath here, if you'll excuse me.
Alright. Which is why you would normally try to use. Which is why normally you would swing with your 2 you'll swing with your 2 volumes first, and then swing with your Vanguard. But keep in mind, now you don't necessarily have to use it if you don't want to, because this effect goes off after his swing. So you feel it's not going to be worth it because most time your opponent is going to intercept with his front rear guards, or they're going to try to do it some way where it's really no damage to them. So just keep in mind of the situation you're in before you activate his effect.
They say an emergency button.
And now, the king of dinosaurs. The king of the Megazords.
May I say something?
Absolute ruler, gluttony, dogma.
May I say something?
Yes, you may.
You would die when you see him. Unless you kill one of his rear guards, but you would die if you see him.
Yes. Now, gluttony dogma has 2 effects. First effect, if he engorge on 3 or more units, he gets plus 10,000 attack. Now I don't know about you, but anytime anytime someone has a G unit that's getting plus 10,000 attack, that's a problem. But more importantly, when he engorged on 5, so you have to have your 5 other rear guard circles full at the time. When he engorged on 5, so you're retiring 5 of your units, not only does he get to 10,000, but at the end of that battle, I reveal another dogma in my G zone, and he gets to restand. So he is restanding with that extra 10,000 attack added to him, which is another reason why you will stride on top of Gaia with him. Because when he engorges on 5 units, you get 2 units that coming back from Gaia's effect, which makes this a very deadly turn. And why a lot of your opponents, if they know you're running dogma, they're gonna try to kill you before you get the GB2.
Oh, most definitely.
And then at the end of this lecture, we have my G guards.
Well, let's explain the most common one.
Okay, first we have Iron Armored Chancellor. Now he has a 15,000 shield, and he gains another 5,000 if you have equal or less rear guards than your opponent. With this being a gorge deck, so you're gonna be retiring units. That's real easy to get away with, because most times you're gonna end up with having less rear guards at the end of your turns than your opponent. So this is good to just run it too when all you need is just an extra, when you just need a 20,000 shield to block with. And then we got Cliff. Now Cliff has the basic 15,000 shield, and he gets another 10,000 when I retire a unit when he's placed on the guard circle. But he has another effect. If I retire a unit if I retire a unit for that extra 10,000 shield, I can pick 2 of my units. I can pick 2 of my rear guards, and they gain the effect that when they go to the drop zone, they return to my hand. Now, the most ideal thing you want to do with this is you want to have 2 grade 2s or 2 units with the intercept ability in the front rear guard circle. And if your opponent's going to do multiple swings, you want to first intercept with those 2 units in the front. Well, first you want to block with him, So you can give those 2 units on the front the ability that when they go into the drop zone, return to your hand. That way, when you intercept with them, they return to your hand. So now you got 2 units that you can block with from the hand now, which is real good. Or the other play you can make with it is if you have a unit on the field that you know your opponent's going to target to destroy, you can use that as protection. That way you can have them back in your hand instead of stuck in the drop zone.
I'm putting an octopus when you said that.
And that's the basic rundown of my Tachikaze deck. Now, later on, I'm gonna talk about I'll talk about the new and improved Gaia deck, since recently Gaia has gotten some more support, including a new grade 3 Gaia and a grade 4 Gaia. But I'm not completely done analyzing that deck yet. So right now I'm gonna stick to what I know the best, which was the original Gaia build. And this is Turn Up My Vanguard.